Hello, organizational communication students. This is Adam Spees here again, and I hope that you are feeling prepared at this point. Looking forward to your Christmas celebration and vacation. And for our final chapter presentation, we're going to take a look at chapter 13, Power, Influence, and Politics. So this is our final chapter on leadership. And if you'll open your PowerPoint presentation in slide 2, we'll get a definition of power. And power is a person or even a group's potential to influence another person or group's behavior. Now, when we think of power, there are two primary categories that we consider related to power. There's positional and personal power. In terms of position, this is related to maybe an organizational chart that I have authority related to someone else, and I can control rewards and behaviors. So there's three types: legitimate, coercive, which would be negative influence. I can, punish someone for their behavior, and also a reward type of behavior. But there's also personal power. This is could be correlated, but also unrelated to one's position. And so there are four categories under personal power. The first being expert type of power. So one may possess knowledge, skills, or certain abilities in a category that may give him the power to influence someone else's behavior. There's also informational. I may have access to information that another in my company may not have, or vice versa. I may need to go to someone in my company for access. There's also a referent type of power based on respect or admiration of someone else, maybe their behavior or the way that they treat others. It could be even emotional intelligence, which was my paper topic, that there's some admiration or quality, a characteristic about that person that influences me. And then the last is just persuasive, related to a rational type of argument. And so in chapter 3, I wanted to give you an example from my kind of everyday work scenario. You will see a very basic work chart. So I work at Grace Church, and at our campus, we have 25 to 30 employees. And so this is just a few of us, but our campus pastor has positional power over all of us, of course. And so my role is pastor of adult ministry. So I have positional power over our office manager and our administrative team. They would also work with other pastoral staff. But as I interact with my other staff members, I and they have different types of personal power. So, for example, I have served in this capacity or position for nearly 7 years as my role has kind of morphed and changed. And so we welcomed a care pastor about a year and a half ago, and he will come to me very often based upon kind of a expert type of power, so to speak, that I served in a capacity related to missions or care, or I have knowledge about people in the church that he doesn't always possess because he hasn't worked here as long. There may be times that I interact with other staff members and I have an informational type of power. I lead our staff meetings as a team weekly. And so I tend to kind of be a clearinghouse for information, prepared from setting the agenda to kind of making sure everyone's on the same page and working together. And so there's certain information they may request, and overseeing communications at our campus, for example. And so there's also times that we may exist persuasive. So across a positional type of power, we use a lot of influence among each other in an organizational chart. So that's just one example of how power can be used across organizations. Now, if you go to slide 4, one thing to consider about power is passing that on to others, to be able to empower others. And use the example of my office manager. Lori is her name. I meet with her weekly, and Lori would have the freedom to set an administrative person to be the kind of front desk face. The parameters would be from 9 to 3, Monday through Friday, but based on vacation or changes, that I have empowered her to make those decisions. And at times, there are two things kind of that we need to think through or that are required related to empowerment. And the first is to actually give them that formal authority or power, and then to provide training, resources, and coaching. And so one for example, Lori would have a kind of fair aptitude, maybe even a high aptitude related to graphics. And so at different times, I've kind of provided training, sent hers, given her volunteers, given her additional staff members that have graphic abilities that we all work together related to programs or sermon series graphics, and seeking to empower her role from a communication standpoint. Now, closely related to power on slide 5 is influence tactics and how people translate their power to others. There's many examples. What research has found is that consultation, requesting someone's advice, inspirational appeals, and rational persuasion tend to be the most effective. The least effective is pressure. You think of, I just switched my telephone provider, my cell phone provider from Verizon to AT&T, and as I interacted with the salesman, I don't like high pressure situations, right? That type of influence versus a very rational type of persuasion that can convince me this is to my benefit to make a switch. Now, if you move to slide 6, related to persuasion, there are a few things to consider in order to maybe use your influence for a greater good. The idea of building credibility, not always beginning with a hard sell, finding common ground, developing vision, a compelling reason why this person or group of people should listen to you, and connecting with them emotionally, providing a constant loop of communication, and being patient. I thought of one of the roles I have is to identify and empower and equip group leaders. We at our campus have 35 or so different group leaders, and so I'm always interacting with people in a way of trying to develop and train new group leaders. And so this past week when I met with a girl, Kristen, I had the idea of trying to sell her on starting a singles group with another guy. And so as I interacted with her, I have a relationship that I've kept up, I've observed her character, I've met with her at different times, and being able to kind of meet and not leading with the hard sell, but giving a vision of the joy and sacrifice required of loving others in terms of a commitment. And sometimes that may mean being patient. I will often have meals and breakfasts with people or meetings with the hope of down the line building credibility and influence. I had a guy named Rick who a few months ago I presented the opportunity to lead a group, and at the time he said no, but maybe in a year it will be different. And so using type of influence tactics in order to maybe execute power or desire. And then the last is related to organizational politics. Social influences attempts to provide rewards that will promote or protect one's self-interest. Generally, people may think negative about organizational politics, but it's actually neutral. It can be used for either good or bad. Organizational culture and an individual significantly influence this type of behavior. And so in chapter 15, we'll look a little bit more at organizational culture. Examples would be controlling an agenda in a meeting, finding an expert that shares your opinion, in terms of kind of moving forward in a certain direction, seeking to eliminate rivals who maybe disagree with you, building others that want your type of framework. And so it's significant to consider the politics, the culture, the structure, and how decisions are made, how power and influence play a part in determining one's direction or goals related to task or maybe long-term vision of an organization. Power, Influence, and Politics, Chapter 13. For discussion, I want to pose, when you think of your own setting in your workplace, how have you seen either power or influence be used to accomplish a task or goal? And then the second question is, from a biblical principle standpoint, what is something that as followers of Christ we should consider when seeking to exert our power and influence? I hope that you have a great Christmas. It's been fun to journey over these last 8 weeks with you. Best of luck on your final exam, and I look forward to seeing your responses. Thank you.